Oi, oi, all right, all right. How's it going? I'm Grant, you're you. This is the Doodle Review. Happy New Year and all that. I'm coming through with the top 50 albums of 2025, and I know I'm pretty late to be publishing it. You know, you've already binged best of lists at the start of the holiday season and don't really know what a new one could possibly have to offer. And yeah, fair enough. What can I say? No matter how late it is, it just doesn't feel right starting the new year without ranking last year's musical offerings. And for me, it's become a tradition, and now I can see in the future it's possibly becoming a curse as well. Some of you that might have been following me for a while might know that this has been a quieter year for the channel, but I've still been pretty consistently publishing my reviews week to week, just this time in the form of a newsletter. So if you want to get weekly music reviews in your inbox, looking at a range of artists in different genres, then hit the link in the description. Go ahead and sign up and join our growing community. It's something I plan to put a lot more emphasis on going into 2026. So if you're subscribed, stay tuned. All right. So 2025, in terms of music, I have to say, while there have been a bunch of albums I've liked this year, it wasn't quite the banger year for me that 2024 was. Don't get me wrong, still great stuff there. I listened to the same volume of music. I listened to 192 new records in 2025. But if you were to make like a top 100 out of the top 50 of last year and the top 50 of this year, you'd find most of the top of that list kind of saturated with 2024 releases. I think this year was mostly the year of live music. I mean, Black Sabbath, Oasis, Sex Pistols, Jamiroquai, seeing Queens of the Stone Age do their Catacomb show. Like, what a time to be alive. Anyway, this is not what you're here for. Let's just get into it, get into the top 50 list. All right. Starting at 50, I've followed the career of Barty's Leon Cox, aka Barty Strange, for some time now. While neither the debut Live Forever nor the follow up Farm to Table completely won me over, Strange's ability to put a new lens on traditionally guitar centric music and to do this song after song after song has always been impressive to me. After a few records pursuing a goal of true genre fluidity and getting pretty damn close on horror, Strange has found the finish line. He's cracked the code, hit the bullseye, whatever sports analogy you want to use, he's done it. Horror invites every major genre influence into its tent, puts keys in the bowl, and lets them kind of explore without inhibitions. Full review to this one is up in the newsletter archive, so you can access it once you subscribe. So once you're done listening to this great record, go check it out. Let's move on. 49 is Mac Miller, Balloonerism. This one caught me by surprise. Much to my shame, I've never listened to an actual Mac Miller record before. I did try out his U EP under the Larry Lovestein pseudonym, which is a previous foray into jazz for the rapper, but I found that to be like a better idea than a musical experience. Balloonerism was a passion project for Mac Miller before he passed, and it was something of a continuation of that UEP, a further exploration of jazz, but this time with more hip hop style and, of course, lyrics. Where this album immediately improves upon the UEP, though, is in the instrumental production. This is a warm and tangible recording where every instrument is, if it's not performed live, it certainly sounds like it is. The record was executive produced by Thundercat, so there are obviously many examples of incredible bass playing on this thing. And the additional care provided by brothers Ronald and Jamil Bruner adds so many cool touches, like the swirling backing vocals that introduce scissors vocals to DJ's chord organ, as well as the organ itself that summons a mercurial but melancholy kind of vibe that kind of reflects the entire release, actually. This was a real surprise, this one, and a real treat. I think it will be a real treat anyway for hip hop fans that like their kind of spacey jazz. At 48 is Melvins and Thunderball. These Sludge Lords, they're back in their bag on this new one. And the last one. I don't know what it is lately, but I'm loving what Buzz and the gang are up to. 2024's Tarantula Heart was killer, and this is also doing the business with some long, doomy arrangements and some strangely uplifting riffs as well. At 47, it's the Young Knives and Landfill. This was a record I jokingly gave a 0 out of 10, but that's just because it could also be a 10 out of 10. I just found the record so willfully irritating at first, confrontingly so. And yet, after a while, that kind of revealed itself to be the entire point of the record and kind of its charm. This is experimental, inventive, dark, British, kind of indie rock. And if that sounds like something you want to try out, by all means do. Just, enter at your own risk. At 46, it's Jason and Belong. Jason is a singer-songwriter I've been aware of for some time. To be honest, I kind of lost interested in them, but tried this album out on a whim and absolutely loved it. It's a great fusion of dream pop, lo-fi, bedroom indie pop singer-songwriter style. It's intimate, warm, with just great songwriting. At 45, it's FK Twigs and Eusexua, and in some way, Twigs Eusexua could be seen as an inversion of Charlie XCX's Brat. Both artistic artists have stylistically thrown it back to the turn of the millennium, but where Charlie pulled from post 2000s overground trashy club pop, Twigs pulls predominantly from underground trance, drum and bass, and trip hop from the 2 or 3 years prior to 2000. Girl Feels Good is my favorite example of this, with synth notes dotted across the stereo spectrum, a subtle guitar underneath, and a slowed down mid-tempo breakbeat. It kind of feels like Ray of Light era Madonna meets Portishead. The album is by far the most accessible work by FK Twigs to date, I think, and yet remains layered, deep, and ethereal. At 44, it's Tame Impala and Deadbeat, one of the few records this year I did a full video on. So, if you're interested, go check that out. But the Cliff Notes version is, I was initially disappointed, then kind of questioned the reasoning behind any of my expectations to begin with, and then kind of found my way actually enjoying it. I wasn't that hot on the slow rush, but I came around to it eventually. Deadbeat already feels like it's closed that same gap in a shorter space of time. So yeah, it's looking good for it. Car Seat Headrest, The Scholars. I kind of thought I was done with Car Seat Headrest before this year. When the new album then dropped with this like extensive runtime and pretentious, lofty idea of a concept, it almost pushed me further over the edge. But I've actually come to really, really like this record. This is the first time the Will Toledo project has written and recorded as a band. And I think the infusion of new ideas has brought a better sense of dynamics and excitement that counterweights the kind of big brain philosophizing of Toledo. At 42, it's Skinhead with It's a Beautiful Day, What a Beautiful Day. This is the second album from Skinhead, a band that do all they can to kind of keep people at arm's length, but can't help, I think, but charm you when you actually listen to them. Their name is aggressive, frontman Joshua Long is intimidating, and the lyrics are confronting. See, Kill Yourself, for example. But when you actually get inside the album, the songs are cathartic and even uplifting. Give it a go. You'll be surprised, I promise. At 41, it's Natalie Lafourcade with Cancionera. This is Lafourcade's follow-up to De Todas las Flores and is her 11th studio album overall. I frankly don't feel educated enough on the musical genres presented to really offer much of a critique, and perhaps that's why it all sounds so magical to me. This one is for fans of more traditional forms of music, particularly, obviously, in this case, those being Latin forms, but the production and delivery is just timeless. At 40, it's Swami John Reese, Time to Let You Down. A new John Reese project is always a good time. This one's no different, just great, solid garage punk rock with all of Speedo's typical eccentricities and esoteric sense of humor. At 39, it's Wet Leg and Moisturizer. This band continue to surprise me. I was definitely part of the industry plant douche committee when they first came out, but their first album prove me wrong. And this one is equally great, if not a bit more prickly than the first, which is something that I actually admire even more. At 38, Masters of Reality, The Archer. The release of this record gave me the opportunity to actually see Chris Goss's Masters of Reality live for the first time this year, which I'm truly grateful for. And in advance of that, I went on a deep dive of all of their records and was, of course, blown away. The Archer doesn't sit among the highest of Goss records for me, but it is fantastic nonetheless. And I particularly loved on this record his many stylistic kind of gestures and nods towards Bowie. I get lots of elements of both Low and Black Star at points on this thing. Plus, obviously all the great blues and rock we're accustomed to from this very underrated band. At 37, it's Heavy, Heavy, Low, Low with Pain Olympics. It always takes me a while with metalcore. Songs are often wrapped in so much dissonance and noise that it's easy to miss the killer parts that come and go in the middle, some of which, might never ever repeat again. With Heavy, Heavy, Low, Low, that phenomenon is amplified tenfold. There is a particularly abstract chaos that permeates almost every track here, whether it's the atonal weirdness that opens Chip's journey, the painful build of Thisme software, the cyclone of soft and obedient, or the many other examples scattered throughout the track list. This is a wild animal of an album. At 36, Chime Oblivion, self-titled. OC's frontman John Squire released a project by one of his many side quests this year, and it ended up being maybe one of my favorite things in his canon since going back to Orc. Chime Oblivion groups Dwyer with post-punk new wave drummer David Barbarossa of Adam and the Ants fame, among many other bands. Its experimental guitarist and underground legend Weasel Walter joins them, as does H.L. Nelly on vocals. The record breaks Dwyer out of some of his go-to OC's moves, which therefore creates a more spontaneous, a cool, dissonant garage rock post-punk fusion that I recommend. At 35, it's Shame and Cutthroat, British post-punk agitators. They've returned this year with what I'm going to say is probably their most accessible and probably also their best record since their debut. After a few years creating some interesting but less instant and more gloomy work, Cutthroat feels fresh and purposeful. At 34, it's Bad Beat in LP 2025. And I know nothing about Bad Beat other than they made a record this year and it is hard as nails, fast as fuck, and fun as hell. Get into it if you're inclined towards hardcore and that whole vibe. At 33, it's The Armed with The Future Is Here and Everything Needs to Be Destroyed. After making my number one album of 2023, The Armed have finally returned, and I think the OG fans of the band will be pleased to hear they've ditched their kind of alt rock fascination from that last record and have gone way back into the throes of hardcore metal and noise. I think some of their genius gets a little lost in the sauce as they've returned to the chaos, but the album is still killer nonetheless. It goes for your face within the first few seconds, so watch out. At 32 is Pup and Who Will Look After the Dogs. I didn't dislike the previous album Unraveling of Pup the Band enough to call this new one a course correct or a return to form. And I genuinely feel that there are aspects to the approach that they took on the last record that could have actually stuck around. But Who Will Look After the Dogs is without doubt an instantly more enjoyable, palatable album that, while maybe sacrifices a little ingenuity, in return, I think offers some of the band's highest ever highs. At 31, it's Danny Brown and Stardust. Now, I actually just think I've not had enough time to fully, truly appreciate this album and process my thoughts because it's kind of mind blowing. I love the introspection of his previous record, Quarenta, but on Stardust, Brown is back in his antagonistic, genre fusing, high energy bag, but in a way I don't think we've heard before. Probably one of the most unique hip hop records I heard this past year, or at least on this list. A deep dive on this will be coming at some point soon. At 30, we've got Barker and Stochastic Drift. Now, I'd heard nothing of Barker in the years since Utility, almost to the point where the greatness of that first record had kind of faded in my mind a little until I saw his name on kind of like an upcoming releases list for spring 2025. And that release was Stochastic Drift, an album still in the IDM techno wheelhouse, but with a much different approach. This time, actually allowing himself the use of traditional beats. Now, even allowing himself access to this kind of common form of instrumentation, Stochastic Drift still retains Barker's unique creativity and is a great, thoughtful, and very atmospheric record. At 29, it's the self-titled Freckle record. Before the release of Ty Segall's newest solo record, he dropped Freckle, a project with Color Green's Corey Madden. And at the time, it became one of my favorite Segall projects, possibly since Freedom's Goblin. But like I said, he then went on and released another great solo record, which we'll come back to in a minute. Anyway, Freckle on the fringes of psych, kind of acoustic, garage type rock. It's great. Highly recommend. 28, One of Tricks Point Never and Tranquilizer. Daniel Payton is an artist I've been very slowly immersing myself into over his last few records. Tranquilizer, though, is probably represents the quickest amount of time it's taken me to like get into the record. And if you're interested in electronic music that meanders in and out of ambient, hypnagogic, and vapor wave stuff, then you probably already know all about this guy, and I'll just shut up. But yeah, this one is great. At 27, it's Drain Is Your Friend, one of the most fun bands to see live, and a band with like one of the sunniest demeanors despite playing heavy riffs. I think I did a video about this one, so if you're up for it, check that out. But yeah, it's a banger record. At 26, Dave, the boy who played the harp. Once again, Dave proves he's one of the most thoughtful and lyrically consistent UK rappers around at the moment. Songs here offer a powerful reflection on his own life and society at large. I think previous records have potentially been a bit cliche in their approach, like the psychiatrist couch concept of psychodrama. This album sees the artist maturing away from those kind of models and just delivers a straight up great record. At 25, it's Boldy James and Real Bad Man with Conversational Pieces. Detroit rapper Boldy James released count them, 9 records this year. Almost all of them are bangers, introducing me month after month, it felt like, to new producers. It's no surprise to me, though, that his release with Real Bad Man is up there as the best from that crop and ranks highly in this album of the year list. My only hope for 2026 is Boldy actually creates enough space with his releases going forward to get the recognition he truly deserves. Just great, consistent street level raps. If you don't know, now you do. This album is a great starting point. At 24, it's Ty Segall again with Possession. After a couple of meandering records, 2025 saw Segall drop one of his best solo records in years. Every song here feels intentional with clear hooks, pacing, and structure, but with enough instrumental flourishes, particularly on bass and with strings to kind of keep things endlessly interesting. Big fan of this one. At 23, it's the psychedelic porn crumpets with Carpe Diem Moon Man. Now, despite the terrible naming of both band and album, the psychedelic porn crumpets really take their listeners on a journey with this one, and in the process may have given us some of the best hard rock that came out in 2025. At 2022, it's the Hives, Forever the Hives. Now, I did a full video on this, so I'll keep this one quick, but damn, I just fucking love this band. Garage punk rock at its finest. They just don't quit and they give it all. 21, it's the Lemonheads with Love Chant. It's an album that is just cool, whether bearing soul or placing tongue in cheek. The band's delivery isn't precious about anything. Before there's been any time to overthink whether it's a chord change, a vocal, or a solo, the band have like kind of already done it and are pretty much over it. This LP could be a case study in how to pull off the loose performance style that defines some of the best punk and garage rock of decades past. I did not expect to love this record nearly as much as I did. I highly recommend it. At 20, it's Stereolab Instant Holograms on Metal Film. It's my first proper Stereolab album, and one I was excited to listen to after Letitia Said Year's great solo album from last year or year before. It's a long record, and it wouldn't be unreasonable to suggest some tighter editing of arrangements or even the culling of a track or two. But given how much I just love the mood this music puts me in, I'd quite happily let a couple of cigs burn right down to the filter, as this LP provides the soundtrack to the world just floating by around me. At 19, it's Wolf Alice and the Clearing. This album, I think, has been strangely overlooked. It's one of the best throwback 70s California well-produced rock records I've heard in some time. And it seems like maybe because that's not quite as in vogue as it was a few years ago, like the big institutions of music have kind of ignored how damn good this album is. I liked the last Wolf Alice record. This took things to a whole new level. At 18, it's Arm& Hammer with The Alchemist and Mercy. Now, Billy Wood's solo album from this year was deeply layered and lyrically profound, but on a musical level, it left me a little cold. Coming back together with Elucid again for the Arm& Hammer project, we've now got an album that maybe isn't quite as lyrically rich as that Woods record, but it's a great hip hop record to listen to. 17, C. Duncan, It's Only a Love Song. Within the context of modern artists that attempt a similar style to C. Duncan, like, for example, the author of last year's #1 album, Jessica Pratt, that. I would say C. Duncan offers a counterpoint to Pratt's fragile imperfection with a sound that is equally wondrous, but almost too perfect. It's hard to now know how an album this crisp, expansive, and pure could possibly be made under the economics of the music business in 2025. Yet, against all odds, it has a minor miracle and a magical album. 16, it's Brandy Younger with Gadabout Season. Now, Brandy Younger is a jazz harpist who I've been following for a few years now. This album is her first of truly original compositions and it's beautiful. I hope more people find Younger's work because she deserves to be heard. To be honest, it's beautiful. 15, Kate Renata with Ain't No Damn Way. I'd not been really feeling the last Kate Renata record. It felt kind of overproduced and maybe a step away from the work that made him so beloved on his debut. This strips things right back to that initial mix of electronica and house, and it's great. I've had a lot of fun listening to this LP in 2025. At 14, it's The Last Dinner Party from The Pyre. Again, full video on this one is out, but it's safe to say I was once again blown away by the art rock from Last Dinner Party on their sophomore record. At 13, Military Gun, God Save the Gun. Again, full video is out, but I absolutely loved this record and love this band. They have great energy live and somehow find a way to kind of thread the needle of deep lyricism and subject matter, but with punk rock that just makes you want to jump up. At 12, Freddie Gibbs and the Alchemist, Alfredo 2. You know, they've revisited a collaboration that resulted in the first Grammy nomination for both artists involved, you know, Indiana rapper Freddie Gibbs and LA-born producer The Alchemist. They finally gave fans the sequel they've been waiting for this year with Alfredo 2. This time, there's like a Japanese backdrop is supposedly the inspiration. I honestly don't hear too much of that in the music, but nonetheless, it's a banger hip hop record. At 11, we've got Waves and Spun. This is just, it's here because it's a no frills garage rock record that just has hooks for days. Every song makes you want to sing along. It's gritty, but melodic and high energy all the way through. I love, love, love this album. At 10, Turnstile, Never Enough. Now, I had some cynicism about this record when it kind of first released because it follows so closely the template that they established by their previous banger record, Glow On. But in the end, Never Enough is kind of undeniable. I really like a lot of the songs on here. And while I think the instrumental dressing is used to mask a bit of fading ingenuity and the core meat and potatoes of the riffs, the energy Turnstile bring to those riffs is still super infectious. At number 9, it's Viagra Boys, with an album I found surprisingly deep and introspective amidst all of the sleazy electro punk, which is, as usual, some of the best you can find in the junkyard. At 8, Pino Palladino and Blake Mills, That Wasn't a Dream. This is my favorite jazz album of the year. Pino Palladino is a bass legend that's played everywhere, but most notably was an integral part of D'Angelo's band in the Voodoo era. Blake Mills is a producer that's equally worked with kind of almost everyone, but on his own music, he has this kind of rustic, dissonant approach to instrumentation. The two of them together, they just make magic. At 7, it's Clipping with Dead Channel Sky. Clipping, I think's greatest strength compared to other artists in the rage rap, alt rap, experimental rap space is how they never let the aesthetics overrun the hip hop of it all. By plumbing the depths of cyberpunk this time round, you know, and underground rave sounds and 80s EBM, Dead Channel Sky sounds like no other rap album out last year. And at the same time, David Deeg's skill and charisma on the mic make this one of the truest hip hop albums of last year. Tunde Adebimpe at 6, The Black Bolts. I could waffle on endlessly about pretentious muso stuff with this record and kind of did in the review that came out in the newsletter. But the thing you have to give this album credit for and really can't escape are its hooks. Driven by Tunde Adebimpe's unique voice, The Black Bolts not only treats you to a range of styles, it's just straight up entertaining throughout. Magnetic, kicks things off with an absolute banger. But you also have the weirdness of tracks like Eight the Moon or the sing along moments of Drop. And there's pretty much an example for every song here. Just go discover them for yourself. It's a fantastic album. At 5, we've got Salt and 10. Now, after some exceedingly dense and heavy gospel albums, I loved hearing Salt focus their powers on delivering some fun, but no less deep soul, funk, and R&B. It's an exquisite record. At 4, Clips, Let God Sort 'Em Out. Easily the best comeback of the year and one of the best hip hop records of the year, and more on that in a bit. The beats are excellent. Pharrell providing the production consistently is almost, I think, as important to this reunion as Pusha T and Malice coming back together. There's a lot more to be said about this one, so stay tuned for that either in the newsletter or on the channel. At three, I'm putting Dark Side and Nothing. This is Dark Side's third release, but it's their first as a trio. So joining Nicholas Jarre, the producer, and guitarist Dave Harrington, this time they brought on drummer and percussionist Tlakel Esparza. And while I'm not familiar enough with Darkside's first albums to make a comparison, I can say for certain that the rhythms and sonic craft of those rhythms is one component that elevates this collection above any other in this kind of trip hop down tempo hypnagogic world of music. Another two, it's Hayley Williams' Ego Death at a Bachelorette Party. I'm kind of as surprised as anyone else about this placement. I'd not been super impressed with Williams' previous solo stuff, and I have a different relationship with Paramore, but this is a record from an artist who's clearly not scared of trying things out and whose instincts for trying those things are bang on almost all of the time. I've had a lot of fun with this album. I actually think it's some of the best pop I've heard all year. And at number one is Little Sims and Lotus. Clips had the star power and the big comeback story, but I think Sims just has more to say. While Clips is out there getting all the praise, I just want to give it up to one of the best British artists out there at the moment. Now, generally, I'd expect an album forced into the world out of spite to end up feeling bitter while emanating nothing but bad vibes and ill will. Somehow, Simbiatu Abiola, aka Little Sims, created a sixth album, Lotus, entrenched in the feelings of betrayal, regret, and distress that kind of lead to spite. And yet the resulting LP feels deep, relatable, even enlightened. Ever since her third studio album, Grey Area, released in 2019, Sims has collaborated and co-written with Inflow, the producer and mastermind behind enigmatic gospel soul project Salt, who we talked about a minute ago. This was a fruitful partnership between the two, resulting in incredible albums, particularly a favorite for me. Sometimes I might be Introvert. Little Sims, that was a landmark record for her. In the years prior to Lotus, and that partnership fell apart, with the story apparently being that Inflow borrowed money from Sims without the intention to pay it back, resulting in the rapper actually suing the producer for a sum in excess of £1.5 million. This betrayal fueled a period apparently of writer's block for Sims, with the rapper having started and scrapped at least one other record before settling on the tracks that would become this album, Lotus. Was it that her previous attempts to write in the aftermath of the split from her trusted partner were just too vicious for release? Perhaps the opposite is true. Maybe she found that she was kind of trying to find a way to pull her punches and write around the breakup rather than through it. We'll never really know what those first attempts sounded like, but the final product that we have here proves Sim's instincts to be correct. It's hard to imagine an alternative record any better than what we have in Lotus, I think. It's an album that doesn't bury its meanings in opaque, esoteric sneak disses that are too covert to be understood, but equally isn't so literal as to offer nothing to relate to. Inflow is this album's clear antagonist, but Sims is smart enough never to name names, and as a result, the songs are versatile. Betrayal is fairly universal after all, and Sims never puts us as a listener in the position of like being a voyeur. The smart writing of tracks like Thief, Hollow, and Lonely give us the entertainment factor of the beef, the relatability of the broader emotions at play, but never offer up details you feel you shouldn't know. We're spared the dirty feeling you get when you've overheard a conversation not meant for your ears. Filling the producer and conductor role on this record is Miles Clinton James. And talk about rising to the task. Lotus has some of my favorite Sims instrumentals to date. And it's super smart and its own type of subtle revenge. I think that Lotus doesn't actually abandon the neo soul meets jazz meets gospel meets R&B influence that Inflow so successfully infused into Sim's last few records. This approach brings the record up to par, but Kokoroko producer James takes the album to the next level by adding new elements, I think. Thief brings a kind of dub vibe to the instrumental. There are whispers of two tone that are broadened further on the more punky Young. Lion drops some funky Afro beat into the mix, and Enough brings the actual funk. These styles are all interspersed between the emotional strings and choirs that were the trademark of the inflow era. But one man can't have a monopoly on gospel, and Sims nudges several times at the God complex that might lead her ex-producer to even consider that. To say this record is only about one specific betrayal or one specific issue does a disservice to the deep thinking artist at the helm. Sims uses a broad range of narrative devices that include kind of characters like Young, two-way conversations on Blood, and direct addresses of the audience in Blue to shine a light on the emotions and revelations that have propelled her through this pivotal period in her life and career. Some highlights for me include Free, in which Sims writes about her thoughts on love, fear, and the place of religion within that. Part of this is prayer or at least a letter to God, but it never feels preachy. Analyzing the power of fear, Sims drops one of my favorite bars on the record, which is that fear will probably hear this and feel exposed. Fear works best when love isn't close. On the powerful Michael Kiwanuka and Yusuf Dayas featuring Lotus, Sims lyrically weaves ideas of technology, its impact on mental health, its creation of social paranoia, and the expectation of spectators that insist on artists speaking on the issues they care about at all times. Interestingly, it's at this point Sims, I think, is at her most angriest, even compared against the songs more directly addressing the betrayal that sparked the entire record in the first place. This is another fantastic record from one of the UK's very, very best artists. And that's it. That's our top 50 of the year. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What am I missing from this list? I'll probably publish some honorable mentions at some point. As I said, I think 192 records I listened to this year. These were the best 50. Yeah, I think, obviously you'll like the styles that you like, but if there's new artists in this list within a style that you're fond of, do give it a try. There's some absolutely incredible records there. Yeah, other than that, I think it's time to knock it on the head, isn't it? The New Year's Day hangover is very truly there in the background, and I think I've done pretty well to get as far as I have. So hope everyone is well. Happy New Year for 2026. Much love. Take care, mate. My name you go. Cheers. Bye.